everybody up in
You ain't got the money.
there. You've got 2 years.
That'll work. I have it down by then. What about the bridge?
You know, read things. Got it.
Yeah. Railroad station.
Sit in the middle.
Let me ask you this. You got pulled up there.
Yeah.
Where do I go? Study. And that's gonna be soon.
To kind of really go through it,
Go through.
the budget itself is what you want to look at. And so,
Is that what I have?
yes, yeah, that's the same thing. And so, you know, the CIP, the individual.
Call the meeting to order. They're all present except for Tammy. She will be here. Item 2, conduct a public hearing on the proposed 2017-2018 City of Enid budget and related authorities' financial plans.
Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners,
Aaron,
City Manager. Part of the Municipal Budget Act requires that we hold a public hearing for input on the city's budget. It was advertised last Friday in the Enid News and Eagle that we were having this meeting tonight. And so if anyone is signed up to speak, this would be the time for them to have
One
that.
person later. We have one, but that would be item number 10.
Nobody wants to talk?
Anybody?
Do what?
We're going to move on to item number 3.
Sing a musical number or something?
Discuss and take any necessary, did you have anything else to add to number 2? Okay. Item 3, discuss and take necessary action fiscal year 2017-2018 City of Enid budget. Item 4, we will now recess to convene as the Enid Municipal Authority.
I think we stick on 3.
3.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We didn't recess to convene, right? No.
Item 3, you're it.
All right, Mayor, Commissioners, we are moving on tonight. We are going to cover the capital improvement program, which contains 7 funds: street and alley, capital improvement, street improvement, sanitary sewer, stormwater, water capital, and capital project escrow. And then we're going to come back and finish up with the Economic Development Authority after that this evening. This is an overview of the capital improvement program as it's presented to you in your budget book. You can see there's a $12.9 million program that we are presenting to you this year for consideration. I do have an asterisk right there by the Capital Improvement Fund. I just wanted to point out, after discussion from meetings earlier this week on Don Haskins, those plans have been finalized and went out to bid this week. So that project will be removed from the draft for next year. So that is not reflected here tonight, but we are proposing.
Because it'll be this fiscal?
It will be awarded
Okay.
before the end of this fiscal year.
Gotcha.
Yes. So I'm going to turn it over to Chris Gdansky to go through each project that makes up these funding amounts and explain the program to you.
Thank you.
102. 102.
Okay, thank you.
Start with streets and
Do have slides. Thought I was going to get to dance. Okay, what we're going to talk about here is this fiscal year's capital improvement projects. What we have is we have these funds. The purpose of the capital improvement is to make improvements to real property and to provide major maintenance. The funds that we have that we'll be talking about this evening are shown there. The numbers in front of those correspond with the beginning of the fund number. Roughly 37 projects, 12.9 in capital improvements. We're going to try something different this year. What we're going to try to do is add in references to the big ideas out of our comprehensive plan that we recently completed. It's a work in progress, but I think what I really want to tell you and explain to you is how we see some of these things beginning the process of improving to those big ideas, and as we go forward and get a little better at refining that, make decisions a little better for those things that we really want to deal with. Okay, Fund 30, street and alley, roadway maintenance. 100, oh yeah, okay, never mind. This is the 4406 line. This provides Public Works with the funds to do some of their smaller projects, reconstruction, and construction projects like we've done on Elm Avenue. This is the street improvement program. We show this as supporting big idea number 7 out of the comp plan, which is our transportation plan. The purpose of this effort is, this is a continuous, repetitive program that we try to fund every year, and it goes along and does heavy maintenance and reconstruction on our local streets. We develop that list of streets with input from Public Works. Then we prioritize that list based on funding, location, and how we have to fix the streets. Most of the streets we tend to look at are reconstruction concrete with curb and gutter sections and sidewalks. We'll get that list put together, we'll coordinate it through Gerald, and then we'll bring it forward at a study session for your comments and concurrence. Okay? So right now it's just money on it that we were going to plan.
You think we'll be able to fix about 10 to 15 streets with that? Is that roughly what that would do, or?
Blocks.
Yeah, blocks.
Anymore, it's gotten to be real pricey to do reconstruction. As you know, a lot of our streets are rather in tough shape. Some of them are so bad there's nothing left of them, which is what we found when we did Broadway in front of the courthouse. Mm-hmm. We basically had to take that street completely up, take the bottom out of the base out of it, redo all of that to get that street built. It's very expensive.
Are we still doing where they spray the coating on some of the streets that have the alligator scale thing?
No, we are not. That has been tried. We find that the streets that we have, they're gone they're far enough gone that it's not really effective for us.
Okay.
It might be something that we might look at. It's still that particular top coating based on Andrea's reference when we did it last time, drives ADA requirements at the corners.
Okay.
So it's not just spraying the surface. You got to fix the corners and make them compliant and accessible.
Gotcha.
Okay?
This project's going to be bid out?
Yes. For construction?
Yeah,
Yes.
we're not going to try to do these.
No, the construction will not be accomplished in-house. This is a rather large amount of construction.
The Elm Street thing was a pretty big project. At least it's been going on a long time.
Well, now, it has been going on for a long time, and it was a really big project, and it grew the more we dug into it. And that's one of the problems that you find when you do construction, is you think you know what you're going to do and have a plan until you put the shovel in the ground. And then you find out what you're really up against. And Billy did an outstanding job considering all the surprises he found.
What was the location?
Elm Avenue between 15th Street and 16th.
15th and Elm. Yes, it's been around a long time.
Well, it's just about done now, and it's a nice street, full curb and gutter section with sidewalks on the north side.
Yes.
There was a lot of issues under the street.
Oh, yes.
Stormwater issues, all kinds of issues. That did turn out to be a big project we bit off, but when it's done, I think we're to our second to last pour coming up. It'll be very exciting. We want you to go out there and drive back and forth on it.
Yeah, back and forth.
Are we going to have a ribbon cutting or anything?
Well,
For you, Ron?
we could, but I guess,
I'd show
yeah,
up.
for you, Commissioner.
I'd show up.
I may be out
Personal ribbon cutting.
of town that day.
Yeah.
Also in the Street and Alley Fund, we have our sidewalk partnership programs, which is where we fund them $25K on each for commercial and residential, and that is a 50-50 split between those who wish to apply for the program. It's a slow process, but we've always had interest in it.
How many did we do this year?
We currently have 3 residence applications that we're working on finalizing and 1 commercial. Okay, the next one is going to be down in the Capital Improvement Fund. The first project that we've got here is what we call the Meadow Lake Crossing Design Analysis effort. We've budgeted $50 for that. there's a lot of interest in having pedestrian access from the north side of Meadow Lake Park to the south side of Meadow Lake Park. And so what we're going to do is we're going to look at a number of approaches for doing that. The things that we've looked at is one.
Low water crossing.
I got
water
four.
crossing.
We've
I'm saying number 3, low water crossing. This is one that, and I'll interrupt Chris because this is really my fault. I've been pushing on this for a couple years now. If we can get a trail designed from where our trail ends to Vance Air Force Base, we have an opportunity to go to the Air Force Base. And we have most of it designed.
We have it designed, yes.
We have it designed. But we had this little gap from one side of Meadow Lake to the other. We could go build a bridge across Meadow Lake, and it will cost an obscene amount of money. Hopefully, our engineers will draw a sidewalk below the spillway that gets washed out every time it rains, and we occasionally have to sweep it off, but that will cost 1/100th of a bridge, and we can survive with that.
Have you ruled out going west to, and not have to cross it?
to go across the Roop Bridge and go down Cleveland. That root structure on Roop, we're in the middle of redecking it now, does not have the structural capability to handle another 10-foot sidewalk.
It's narrow.
There's just not enough room there, and the structure will not allow it to where we could expand the decking to include a sidewalk. The things that we're going to have looked at is we're looking at a bridge where the current trestle is, and that could either be a pedestrian bridge or a combination bridge. That's one of those that would be, I would anticipate that solution would be, a couple $1 million, but it would be one of those that you'd see from the highway, and you'd light it up and all that other good stuff. The second one that we're going to go look at is we'll get some geotechnical information on the spillway and see if there's any way that we can put a footbridge across there without compromising the spillway or the dam. And we also have to check to make sure whose jurisdiction that's in. So we've got to run that to ground. The third one is a low water crossing below the dam. The challenges in particular with that one is getting an accessible route down and back up and still be safe during rains, because as soon as we get a little bit of rain, water starts to flow. So we have to decide how much low flow are we going to allow to go by underneath or none, and how do we control children playing in the water. And then the fourth one is kind of one of those that we've kind of bounced around a little bit, and that is, and it will require quite a bit of coordination, and that is to see if the US 81 bridge has enough capacity and structural strength to handle the addition of a sidewalk.
Thank
Okay?
you.
Yeah.
Are all of those going to be 10 feet wide?
That is the goal. I think we're going to find on some of those, particularly on the 81 bridge, we will probably have to go less than 10, but the goal is to make a 10-foot conventional trail. So
I hope we can. We're not going to get real far on designing a $2 million bridge.
Well,
The reality of it being.
what we're going to get to is we're going to get the information back to you to where we can give you a rough order of magnitude on what it would cost to design and build each one of these, what are the complicating factors, and what are the risks associated with each one of these. For example, 81 Bridge. The risk is we have to get ODOT to allow us to hang a sidewalk off their bridge.
Safety-wise, that's probably the biggest safety factor of all four. Putting kids and joggers right next to Highway 81.
Well, we would be outside their guardrail. They have
It would be a very expensive cage.
Understand?
yeah, and there'd be a cage. I mean,
Sure.
we have to consider all of the aspects of putting pedestrians and 10-year-old boys
Yes,
out on a trail.
agree.
So, but this should, and I anticipate that this will give us at least a starting point on where we want to focus our efforts.
I'll sign up to go sweep that sidewalk after it gets rained the first time. It'll be fine.
Of course, just to be
Yeah.
open,
Ben?
The low water crossing is in the floodway. So that is the biggest challenge.
It will be underwater sometimes.
And water will come up fast and come up quick.
Yep.
Okay, next, trail improvements. This is one that we actually budgeted for this year, and we're leaving it on the list because, believe it or not, we're having a challenge getting our architect firm, our engineering firm, on contract through ODOT. We selected the firm back in January, and they provided an agreement with a proposal to ODOT, and we just have not seen that back. The purpose of this project is to create a trail from Oakwood Road to Cleveland. What I've shown here is the major challenges of this, and that is to cross these large drainage structures and these floodways. And for those who aren't experienced, these little hash marks, these are regulated floodways. That is where the water comes up quick and fast. And in accordance with rules that FEMA has, those have to remain clear of structures. And anything that you put in there has to be able to stay put because it can be carried downstream with floodwaters and create damage in other places.
What street would this be adjacent to?
This would be on Chestnut
Chestnut,
between Oakwood and Cleveland.
south of Chestnut.
Okay? This is the one that Aaron mentioned earlier. This is the Don Haskins Trailhead. It did go out to bid. The funds are, we have 160 in the budget this year. We were pulling 40 from CGB. Obviously, the intent here is to construct a trailhead in the northeast corner of the park. The accessible parking and the remaining of the sidewalks will be are being provided through another fund. That work is basically waiting on this to get finalized. And then I think, is Public Works doing that?
Yes.
Okay. The sidewalks and the corner nodes at Cherokee and 6th were done when we reconstructed that bridge there by St. Mary's. This does not include one block of trail to connect the Broadway Trail to this park, but I believe Gerald has a plan on how to source those funds. And once that happens and we get rolling into the new budget year, we'll get started on that and get that contracted out as well.
Trailhead alone is gonna cost $200,000?
It's not just a trailhead. This is the idea that we've had, and this went through Parks, Public Works, Public Utilities, and Gerald, so I think this is what we are comfortable with in terms of a layout.
Would it be similar to the one at Cleveland?
I don't think it'll be quite that elaborate.
And the one in Cleveland was about 400,000.
400.
Wasn't it? So this one would be more economic.
But you have restrooms in the figure there.
Restrooms, is that the
Yes,
space
yes.
of picnic table?
Two sets
Basically, or-
of restrooms, equipment closet, and then a covered patio here.
Cool.
The challenge with this one, which helps identify why the cost, is you can see that this is the location we're talking about. This is the floodplain. We have to raise that corner roughly 3 feet, 4 feet, 3.5, 4 feet, to get it out of the floodplain and to get our freeboard, and then we'll build a building on top of that mound. So it'll look approximately like it's even with the intersection here, or a little bit higher up.
Was that kind of what you had to do with Exchange Park? The
Yes, it
restaurant
is.
there?
Yes, it
The
is.
same, just
Same
bring it
deal.
up to,
The good news is we're just in the floodplain here and not in the floodway, so we don't have to, and at the edge of the floodway, so we don't have to offset our impact.
Is the circle where you have,
The circle is where we're planning on putting the trailhead here.
is that all you have to put in, the 3.5 to 4 feet, or is it the entire?
It'll be within that circle is roughly what we'll be putting in, elevating that to get the structure out of the floodplain.
get used a lot.
Do what?
I was thinking, I think it will get used a lot.
Oh,
It's used very heavy right
Yeah.
now.
you want to comment?
No, but anybody drives by there, knows
Yeah.
what kind of crowd they've got down there.
Absolutely. This will actually come out of the budget, I believe, if it gets awarded, so you won't see it, because it'll be executed in this budget year. And then we'll probably do something about budgets for the sidewalk, the one-block sidewalk from this here north to Broadway, to the Broadway Trail.
When do we expect construction to begin on this?
We'll bring it to you probably within 30 days, so construction won't begin until late July at the earliest.
Not too bad.
No, it's not.
Get something done before the snow flies.
Well, this is one of Morale's projects, and he has really cracked a whip on this.
Leave it.
Okay, next up, capital improvement. We're going to do some design work on the next group of landfill cells. This one's a little higher than what we spent 3 years ago on design work. Our attempt is to design enough cells that once we get them constructed, we can get 3 years' worth of use out of them and see if we can't get a little bit ahead of this ball. Because it's really uncomfortable for us and for Lou to know that your landfill is going to fill up within 2 years, and I'm just now starting the next design process. And it makes him nervous. So we're trying to push that out a few years. We have another project here for replacing the controllers on our school zone timing lights. What this will provide, and this work will be done by Public Works. They'll install common controllers at all of approximately 60 locations where we have school zone lights. And it'll provide, the equipment provides the tech services guys the ability to have secure remote communication with those controllers. So when we have a time zone change or a power interrupt, he can set them back to where they need to be, change the timing on them, or if we have a day off, he can turn them off without having to hit every one of those 60 locations to change those lights. So you can imagine the type of manpower this will save us. Okay, this is the one that we call ADA compliance. The purpose of this one is it's a reoccurring, court-ordered budget item where we improve the accessibility across town at a number of locations. Those locations are identified in what we call the transition plan. And the current priority list is we'll work on Coolidge first, and depending on how far that goes, either Garfield or Taft. We generally find that we consume the majority of this $300,000 at one school, and we provide sidewalks, curbs, crossings within a 3-block radius of the school. You'll notice that construction will start to begin out at Adams, and we went several blocks out at Adams, and so now you can walk the Broadway Trail and get to the school all on new sidewalk.
Cool.
This is not the court case money.
Yes, this is the court case money, sir. Yes, sir. Yes. Yeah, these will all go out for bid.
Sometimes,
Well, let me ask the question. All of what? These sidewalks?
yes, sir.
This project, yes, they all go out for bid.
So there are times that your projected cost of $300,000, bid could be lower.
Absolutely.
So that would actually help
Well,
save some money.
No, except for we don't get to save money in this budget item. The court order is that we spend $300,000 a year for improving accessibility. And when we do, excuse me, and when we do sidewalks around a school, if we get a bid like that's less than the required amount, we'll do a change order for that contract and add more sidewalks.
It'll all get spent.
That's what I was wanting to find out.
Yeah.
If there's any additional money left over, we'll be
Sure.
able to.
Good.
Yeah,
Not out of this line item.
well, that's when you would go to Garfield. If you're done with Coolidge, you move over.
Correct. Depends on the magnitude
Right.
of the shortfall in terms, or what's under 300. If it's not a lot, we'll just add another couple blocks of sidewalks. And every time we pass a street, we have to put in a ramp and redo the corner nodes. So it adds to it.
Doesn't go as far as you think it would.
No, it does not.
This is a good opportunity for me to jump in on, also, these projects, this $300,000, isn't really for any project. It's projects that are listed in the ADA transition plan. And there's an ADA advisory council that you've appointed people to that meets about quarterly, and they give us their recommendations, their advice, and right now we're working on school sidewalks. You know, one of the things, Commissioner Jansen, you know, you and I have talked about, there's some constituents in your area that are very interested in a crossing at Oakwood in the general area of the Commons nursing home to get across the street, because a lot of them go across the street. We have talked to the ADA Advisory Committee, and they are not comfortable and have not recommended that we could substitute that project for what is in the transition plan, which is a crossing at Oakwood and Garriott. A crossing at Oakwood and Garriott will not probably happen anytime in the foreseeable future just because of the difficulties, the drainage ditches, the lack of area, the funds that are going to be available to do that. So one of the things we had talked about, because we don't have a line item in here for that crossing, we believe that crossing will be like one on Van Buren, which I believe is about $100,000.
That is correct, sir.
To accomplish that, it is possible to use some of these funds per Andrea. However, the commission would have to add to the transition plan, add that project, not substitute it, but add it as a project. And then we could potentially use $100,000 or whatever it would take to do that. I do note that all the commissioners received, Ron Schultz, I think he received a petition with 100 signatures from him, so I applaud his effort, because I'm not sure I've seen a petition with 100 signatures for anything in the city. So I don't know if you want to.
Convention Hall.
Convention Hall.
Would it go on,
hit
would it
5,000.
be added to the transition plan, and then we would get to it based on, excuse me, based on the prioritization from the ADA Advisory Board?
Well, if you're looking for prioritization from the ADA Advisory Board, they won't advise that you do that.
Well, no, that's what I'm just trying to figure, when we do it, because if we put it in the transition plan and then put it at the top, I mean, can we just do that?
Well, the transition plan lists a lot of projects.
Yeah.
And so we don't
But I thought they were
necessarily-
roughly prioritized on when, when we could get to stuff.
I don't think they may be, but I know they're in long lists.
Okay.
And some of them are like the Oakwood and Garriott Crossing. I don't know where exactly that's at on the list, but I know it's not going to be practical anytime
Sure.
soon. So this particular project, if it was added, we would have to make a determination whether to do it this year out of this $300,000 or do it in a subsequent year out of $300,000. And you guys would be able to do that based on your direction with that probably resolution to add it to the transition plan, and then the annual $300,000 allocation we have. So, but I think that's an opportunity for you, Commissioner Jansen, if there's support on the commission to do that.
Well, you know what my opinion is. And like I say, if it looks like that this project is not going to get any attention this year, Mr. Schultz will show up here with all of his troops. He'll bust them in here. We'll have a full house to tell us how important this is to that particular group, so.
Gerald, when you say added, not substituted, but added, what that tells me is they're going to keep the plan to make a crosswalk on Garriott
Yes, that's correct.
and add this in addition to that. So now it looks like we have two plans, one a block away from the other to both provide access across that street.
Well, but the Garriott, oh, go ahead.
Actually, we're looking at this mid-block crossing, well,
Right.
the crossing for the Commons.
Right.
It's halfway between the two lights, so it's roughly a half mile either
Right.
side, which is one of the reasons what drives us in the engineering department to recommend a controlled crossing,
Right?
because I've got 40, 45 mile an hour traffic there.
Right.
And so it's prudent that if you're going to have pedestrian crossing there, you stop the traffic.
I think it's much safer over near the Commons than it is to try and do it at one of the busiest intersections in town.
Well, another issue.
But I don't like having both.
Yeah, another issue there is, though, we've looked at this for years and years, and there's no way to get sidewalks from any area to that intersection.
Yeah, there's not much of a chance for getting sidewalks south of the Commons to
Right.
Garriott.
That's all
It's pretty crowded.
Well, though at some point, ODOT will come in and rebuild that intersection.
That they will.
It may be 10 years out, but eventually,
Maybe longer with our state budget problem.
yeah, I mean, if they can't pay for ODOT, that's a whole different issue, but ODOT will eventually come in, and when they do that intersection, they'll put a pedestrian controlled intersection there. I mean, that's what, anytime they do a replacement intersection, they do.
To me, it was
My concern with this particular location is it's just in the middle of, it's in the middle of the block. And either, if you do it really in the middle between the lights, it's, I mean, you're talking between the light at Garriott and the light at Randolph?
Yes.
I'm not sure that helps the people at the Commons anymore. And if it's at the Commons, then it's just going to clog traffic, people turning right on or off Garriott. It just doesn't seem like a good place either way.
Chris, where would that be from the Dollar General store? Right in front of it?
No, it'd be south of the Dollar General.
South of there.
South?
It'll be pretty close to the Commons.
So they'd have to cross the Dollar General store parking lot.
There's probably 3 locations it could go, because this has been looked at pretty extensively by engineering and by our ADA consultant, Chris Stein. There's King Street.
Yes.
There's in the middle somewhere around the Commons parking lot, and then just on the north side of their parking lot, whatever street that is, on the north side. So there's at least 3 locations. They all have problems.
La Mesa.
Mesa, yeah. So they all have problems, so nothing's easy. That's why this hasn't been done. That's why Oakwood and Garriott hasn't been done. I don't think you would want to take Oakwood and Garriott out of the transition plan. I don't think council would recommend that. So it's possible that if you did this, someday you might end up with 2 crossings, or maybe take one out, I don't know. But when I think about Van Buren, I guess that's not a mid-block one, because there's sort of whatever street that is that goes by the football stadium.
Taft.
But we also have trail on either side. I mean, more importantly for Van Buren, it's smack dab in the middle
Is
of
the
our
name of
big
the street.
trail.
It's the crossing at France.
One thing, Ron has been very, very active, Ron Schultz. I know, and I've talked to, in fact, with you, Commissioner Scott Wegmiller, who's the administrator. The Commons, if this happens at the Commons, our responsibility would be to put the crosswalk in, whatever lights, whatever curbs and ramps. The Commons would connect a sidewalk to wherever they want it to go on their side. On the west side of the road, engineering would have to figure out how to get it up on top of that quasi-sidewalk
big
drainage
Stormwater
ditch.
channel.
There's a big
Drainage
ditch
channel.
there.
Well, right, but it's in there's a concrete box structure there that really looks like a sidewalk if you didn't know it was a drainage structure. So that's what I presume would function as the sidewalk on that side, at least into the Kmart.
Are folks wanting this so they can walk to Kmart? I mean, is this or to the bank, or?
They've got 3 or 4 business, Kmart, Kentucky Fried Chicken,
Proms, they want to have access to that area without having to get cars
Okay.
or.
and most of them like to walk.
Can't fault them,
Or
I do
take their
too.
little electric vehicles, however they get around.
Well, I don't think they can drive electric vehicles on our sidewalks. I'm pretty sure that's not.
I think he's more
allowed.
referring to electric wheelchairs.
Oh, okay.
Other
Oh,
roads.
electric wheelchairs, that makes more sense.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of like little golf carts with the flat.
No, they don't have anything like that. At least not I'm
Those are
aware
a
of.
lot more fun.
Okay, we ready to move on?
Yeah, you guys can ponder that, but
Yeah.
we probably need to move on.
Yes.
Okay.
Terrible place.
Okay, reconstruction and overlay. This is the one that'll probably draw a lot of interest from a lot of people. You'll notice that we believe that dealing with the boulevard helps not only our transportation plan, but also what we consider to be like the model neighborhood, which is starting to go in that area. So that's how that reference thing works. We've budgeted 1.6 for this. This is an ODOT managed federal aid to local routes program. ODOT's share is $1 million, and we make up the difference. Currently, the plans for not only the intersection but the boulevard are final, and they're going to ODOT for final review. If they have any comments, we'll update. We'll bring the intersection agreement back here for consideration for the intersection soonest. And shortly thereafter, if they have agreements for us,
If they have money.
if they have money, shortly after the new fiscal year, we'll do the boulevard. And it really depends on whether it's how they handle this budget issue that they have. Okay?
Under $2.5 million.
How far is the boulevard?
Boulevard goes from the north,
Railroad track.
roughly the north side of the Walmart property to the railroad tracks. And it includes.
It doesn't go all the way to Chestnut.
When we approach Chestnut, it'll be a 5-lane intersection, but we have left turn lanes and storage for left turning traffic on southbound Cleveland. And we also have access to the refueling station there on the corner.
Holdings.
So pretty much right around Chestnut to the railroad tracks.
Correct.
It's pretty far.
The intersection will take care of all that around the intersection, plus 500, 900, 500 feet, I believe, north. And then the boulevard will pick it up from there. This project will pick it up from there and take it to the railroad tracks. And it will include left turn lanes for the apartments and for where the east side will someday develop, and a left turn lane and storage bay for Rolling Oaks Drive.
So if ODOT doesn't approve funding, I mean, if ODOT's budget woes are not just short-term, we don't do this project, right? I mean, we're not going to try to manage the full freight of this project. Is
I
that
think that's
kind
a
of the?
council decision, not an engineering decision.
Well, I just mean, that's a huge
That's a
cost
huge
for
project.
it's a big project for us to take on our own.
It is.
You know, I don't,
Yeah.
and it's just not that much distance. I mean, I understand it's, half a mile, but still, we could cover a lot of roads with $2.6 million if that's where we end up with. How long will it take us, I mean, at what point in this coming fiscal year will we know if ODOT is in or out?
The best information that we have is that Mike Patterson with the Department of Transportation has instructed his staff to make their prioritized list by region on projects.
Oh, no, sorry, I don't mean with the current,
Well, this all
current heading.
feed-
I just mean the normal status quo.
Oh, the normal status,
Yeah, assuming we were operating in a normal world.
September, October timeframe?
Okay.
And it depends on whether they're waiting on federal highway funds before they enter into an agreement, which means we have to wait for the federal fiscal year, which is 1 October, or whether it's the state's fiscal year.
Oh, okay, that answers that.
And
Thank
I
you.
don't have that answer.
I think you need to keep it on the list.
Okay?
But come December, we may know whether this is going to drop off and,
We may know whether this goes on the shelf and waits another year.
okay, got it. That's what I was trying to
It
figure.
can always rest on the shelf.
Absolutely. And that's really how we've managed to get as much participation from ODOT, is that we have leaned forward and created these designs and worked with them on a regular basis to stay in their sites and to be on their list. And then I have to commend it to the city. The past has clearly indicated that we perform to what we say we're going to do. And that helps us out tremendously, because they know, the folks down at the state, they know that if they award us a program, we're ready to go and we'll see it through.
The money's already there.
So there is such a thing as shovel-ready. Thank you.
I didn't hear what you said.
I said there is such a thing as shovel-ready in Enid, Oklahoma.
Okay, are we ready?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Obviously, that's what we're going to rebuild. To do that, we have a water line that is on the east side of Cleveland that needs to be moved out from underneath the street. Obviously, we move water lines before we rebuild roads, because there's nothing sillier than cutting a brand-new concrete street to fix a water leak. So we move it now. The next project on there is going to be widening Cleveland from the railroads north to Willow Road. There are some significant stormwater issues that we're going to have to deal with in that design process, because as those who live in that area understand, a lot of water goes down there, down Cleveland, in the borough ditches. Okay? So this is a design effort, and this will line us up for the next time ODOT has money. And when we're ready, we step up and say, here we are. Okay? One of the other things that we need to do is to take a look at do a traffic analysis at the intersection of Cleveland and Garriott. That's pretty much one of our worst performing intersections, and I don't think anybody would really disagree with that. And we also see this as helping to improve that retail destination that we're trying to set up there on Garriott, on the west of 81. It's a study and an analysis effort, conduct the traffic studies, and find out what it is we really are up against, and then what do we think we can do to fix it. So The other one that we've got going in.
We do this, or do we hire somebody to do it?
No, we will hire an engineering firm that specializes in traffic analysis to do the analysis for us, do the traffic counts, and make recommendations. And then we get to do the design. It's a long and painful process, I understand. It's fun for us. Our next project is a design project that is to upgrade this intersection here at Randolph and Garland. It needs to be increased in capacity, so we're probably looking at 3 lanes each way. So we have left lane storage, and this is to get out in front of that traffic that we know is coming as these areas develop. So if we get the design in place, and you always want to design and construct your intersections before you widen your roads. Otherwise, you just pile everybody up at the intersection. Okay, reconstruction and overlays. We're going to finish East Broadway. It's a mill and overlay project, and it's from 16th to University. We've got $780 budgeted for it. We've already done with the water line. We'll do the design and the bid on this one. We're going to relocate the water line from on Broadway from Washington to 81. So we'll be ready to do that one at some point in the future. Mill and overlay. Understand that mill and overlay is our heavy maintenance programs on our arterial streets, and it provides a good 17 to 20 year life on them. And so the plan of this project, this reconstruction and overlay project, is a continuous, reoccurring program where we do mill and overlays across the streets. We get through them all, and we go back and start over.
The first one, that will also be replacing that box culvert and doing the sidewalk.
That will actually
across
be
it.
done in a separate program.
Okay.
But it is in this year's budget.
Okay.
Okay? Sanitary sewer fund. This is the funds that we use to deal with our sanitary sewer. They provide capital improvements in sanitary sewer systems and some of our, what we call, I can't remember what, CMOM, where it's maintenance and operational preventive maintenance. So what we do is we do an overflow reduction, and this performs periodic inspections and repairs of our sewer systems. We also have a design project in work to help the headworks of the wastewater treatment plant. What we've found is the design that was built requires a relatively large labor cost to keep the headworks bar screen cleaned. And so there's a lot of labor time and effort involved in that. And so we're going to look into what can we do to improve that design and cut that labor out. And in the same process, we think we'll actually be able to improve the pretreatment of our wastewater before it gets into the plant.
What is the headworks? I'm not.
Lou?
It's the beginning of the beginning of the wastewater treatment plant where the raw wastewater comes in and we start using bar springs. We start preliminary treatment designed to help out remove the sand, the grit, and all the stuff that was collected in the collection system. And the headwork tells us to take that out.
I guess all the stuff that we filter out then we have to haul off.
Yes, sir. We have to take it to the landfill. Yes, sir.
Is that new semi-truck we just
Yes, sir.
budgeted for? Okay.
That answer your question, sir?
I know now what a headworks is.
I'm sure, sir, I am sure that Lou will give you a tour if you ask for one.
I've been out there. And I'm not really anxious to go back. I would recommend that these new gentlemen go out.
Lou?
Yes, sir.
Take names.
Got it.
The next project is obviously an annual, semi-annual root control project where we take certain areas of the city and we do chemical root control to keep the roots out of the sanitary sewer. It's preventative in nature. We also we have a project to upgrade the digester mixers on the sludge processing side of the plant. We did the aerators, you'll recall, just not too long ago, which will really help out on improving the aerobic processing of that sludge and making it process. But we also need to update these mixers, get out in front of any potential failures, and improve the capacity of sludge processing.
Is this the new half of the, or the old half of the treatment facility?
This is the old half of the
Okay.
treatment facility. I do actually have a map, oddly enough. This is the new plant that we bought, that we purchased and constructed. We do our sludge processing here on the north side of the lake, of the river, or the creek, and that's where we would do those improvements. And that's, I got lake on my mind.
It's going to help us with phosphorus removal tremendously.
Okay.
Okay? Public Works. This is a fund in the stormwater. We have changed funds now. We are now into stormwater. Okay, and this goes into Public Works' budget, and this allows them resources to do in-house storm channel improvements, stormwater channel improvements, and heavy maintenance on those channels. Just something we got to keep on top of. We have a rather large construction project to do what we call Chestnut West Detention. The design is complete. We'll pull it out and refresh it. We do already own the property, and as you can see, this is Willow and Garland. Here's Prairie View. We have this detention facility, and we'll build one here. And this will put us out in front of the development in all of that area, which is important to us.
Is that north of the Pheasant Run, or is it on Pheasant Run?
Pheasant Run on the west side of Garland is here, and here is the other portion of Pheasant Run.
Okay.
But, we already own the property, so it's just a matter of refresh the design and put it out to bid.
You gonna create a lake there, or what?
No, sir.
It's right across from the school.
It'll be dry detention, just like the one south of Prairie View. It may not look exactly like it, but it will be dry detention like the one.
Grassy low spot.
Exactly. Question?
Is there a lot of water issues in that area?
There is not at this time, but there will be if we don't get in front of it. Because you can see that what comes out of this detention facility hits this channel here. What comes out of this detention facility hits it down here. So we got to slow these down.
The one that's there now goes east, doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
And
All that water goes east.
The one that you're discussing goes
Southeast,
southeast? Okay.
generally. Okay? Waller detention. This project is to begin construction of the Waller Detention Facilities. For those of you who are not familiar with that, this is Waller Elementary? Middle school. There's this large open area behind the school. This is the place that they call the Eagle Glades. This is the channel that goes north to Chestnut, which ties into the Rolling Oaks Detention Facility. And as you'll recall from previous discussions, there's a 36-inch pipe right here, corrugated metal pipe that's buried, that has no bottom in it, and a lot of obstructions, so it's not flowing like it should. So the intent of this project is to excavate this out, build a discharge structure here in this corner, and move the glade to the front of the property so it's more accessible to the school, and they're good with that. And then excavate at least a third of that property. The school would like for us to excavate that such that we have a 3-tiered soccer field, practice field for them. And we use it and we get a stormwater detention easement, stormwater easement, and we'll store water there when it rains, and then it'll drain out pretty quick. Okay? Cool. One of the other projects that is in this year's budget is to pave this channel here from here to Chestnut. That'll help get that water through there and help us to control that area as well. This is a box structure that's out on Broadway. This is the construction aspect of this project. We did the design in the previous FY. This structure is actually right here on Broadway at Lakeview. It's about had a useful life and it needs to be replaced. This project will take care of replacing this structure. We'll do some channel alignment work up and downstream, and then we'll go ahead and add the 1 block of sidewalk on the south side, so we will complete that Broadway trail. So by the end of this construction, we'll have a 6-foot trail from downtown to University. Woo. Woo-hoo. And we see this as really helping out that not only the green space, which is the walking, but helping out development along Broadway East, which is what it's there for.
A lot of people use that sidewalk.
Good.
Yeah.
Well, and I'll be happy to get that last block taken care of. Okay, now into water capital. Fund 44. The first project is a maintenance replacement project for the systematic and recurring replacement of valves and valve boxes within the system. This will be done by Public Utilities, Lou. We've got a list of valves that we know need to be replaced, and we pretty much need to go through our whole system and determine which valves need to be replaced and replace them. We've had some issues with some valves that have failed, so this gets us through the system. This will really help us out on controlling our flows and understanding our system a lot better. Okay?
About the 250,000, what, it just says tools, parts, and supplies?
Oh, there's another piece of this. There's a couple more pieces of this. 250,000 into tools, parts, and supplies, which is 4406 line, which is Lou's tools, parts, and supplies. One of the projects is this. There's another project that we are continuing what we did a pilot on last year, which is water main replacement. And this is where we replace some of our older water mains in smaller chunks so we can get over them without a big, large expense, 2-3 blocks. And we did the pilot last year. We find that it's a viable way of doing it. This will improve fire flows. It'll improve flow and pressure, and it'll help us reduce our main breaks. So if we can get to them in maintenance and capital improvement, and then we reduce our need to react to a break. Okay? And then the last piece of this is the tools, parts, and supplies. Lou's going to start in conjunction with utility services. We'll start an annual program where we start replacing our automated meters. We did a major program to step up to automated meters, and it's time to start to replace those. And if we do this over multiple years, we can do them a little bit at a time, and it avoids us having to do a major, multi-million-dollar project to replace them all at once.
What's the life of those meters?
10 years, sir.
Are we still paying the debt service on the big meter investment? How long does that stretch out?
Is that like $6 million?
It was some crazy number, yeah. Just, it's the number where it gets big enough that it stops feeling like real number. I can't keep track. Yeah, that's Call Lake, yeah.
I was going to say, let me know when you get there, because I haven't
Yeah.
got there yet.
That one pays off in 2030.
2030, okay, thank you.
So anyway, this is a systematic way of dealing with those meters that are starting to fail, and may not be working quite right.
The automated ones that are starting to fail?
Yeah, yes, ma'am, we've got quite a few what we call dead meters out there that we're trying to make sure that we're collecting everything that we should be collecting with the water flow that we're providing to them.
Are you talking about the meters that we just switched out?
Yeah.
And the reading,
We had 18,000 customers that we put meters in. So out of those 18,000 customers that we put meters in, there's a few that manufacturer defects, that sort of thing that's going to happen. Okay, we've got a
That's been
certain
about 4
percentage.
years ago.
Yeah, run over by a car,
Yeah, there's certain things that's going to happen.
tree land on
And
it.
those are the ones that we're going back and systematically replacing.
But it's not just because they're wearing out after 5 years.
Right.
Because that
hope not.
would be really concerning, like we just did that.
Yeah.
The older they get, the accuracy on them degrades too.
Right.
Particularly at the low and medium water flows. And of course, since we derive our water revenues from the accuracy of the meters, that's why it's a good practice. And these meters were installed back in 09, 10, I think. So it's a good practice to have some amount every year to replace a certain amount of meters.
Just trying to get ahead of the game.
Okay.
It's a standard time change item.
You don't want them all to wear out at the same time.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
You're back where you were.
We're only replacing the broken ones, right?
Right now, yes.
Okay?
Thank you.
Okay. We have a raw water line. This is continuation of the water capital improvement fund. We have a water line to 3 of our wells that are out in the far west reaches of the Clio well field. That line, that gathering line, needs to be replaced. This project will do that. The next project is we have an option to purchase property for the water treatment plant for the new surface water. So this budgets that fund. It's a 70-acre purchase, and this keeps us in the game. We have a project to do refurbish some water tanks as well. They've been out there for quite a while. They really need to be worked on. The arrows give you a rough indication. Let me move a little bit. For those of you who are not aware, this is Enid. We have what we call the Enid Isolated Terrace, or the Enid well field. We have the Drummond well field, Ames, Ringwood, and Clio. Those are our well fields. So you can see we go out there a long ways to get water. And so these tanks are in these areas, the Ringwood well field and the Clio Springs. Okay? We have our continuous maintenance and improvement program called Wellfield Improvement and Replacement. This provides us the capability to acquire water rights, build new wells, improve other wells. Just keeps the water process working, keeps us from getting behind. This budget year, we plan on bringing on 2 new wells out in the Ames and Drummond well field, and that should help us out quite a bit. Okay? We also have a reoccurring project that we started last year, so it's reoccurring this year. We have some older and obsolete wells and well houses that need to be demolished, and the wells need to be cased, cemented in, and the well houses removed and the well heads removed. This is driven by DEQ and OWRB. So as we take these down and take them apart, we take these wells off of our permits, and so we're no longer liable for them because we've cemented the well. It's something that we just need to start doing. Okay? There's a thing called capital projects escrow. We have stormwater development fees that developers pay based on basin. I know we talked about, Aaron talked about that earlier. This just transfers the money from construction projects back into stormwater. In summary, we've been over a lot. These are the funds and the rough and the budget the amounts that we have, and I'll entertain any other questions. Okay, I think I've said enough.
Good job.
Thank you, sir.
Item 4. We'll now recess to convene as the Enid Municipal Authority. Item 5, all of the trustees of the Enid Municipal Authority special meeting are in attendance. Item 6, the Enid Municipal Authority special meeting is now in session. Item 7, discuss and take necessary action on the fiscal year 2017-2018 Enid Municipal Authority financial plan. Aaron?
Yes, earlier this week, it was requested that we are able to come back to any section to discuss anything that may be there, so this is basically a placeholder. If there are any changes you would like to see to the EMA authority, we would like to capture those tonight so we could bring them back to you next Tuesday as changes that we are presenting to the draft before our final.
I don't have anything.
Anybody? The answer is no.
Great, then we can move on.
Something probably really important that I missed when I was not here.
Item 8,
That's what always happens.
we'll now adjourn to convene as the Enid Economic Development Authority. Item 9, All of the trustees of the Enid Economic Development Authority are in attendance. Item 10, Enid Economic Development Authority special meeting. We do have a person signed up to speak to item 10.
You want to move on to,
Well, I have to move down to 11, I think. Is that what you're saying?
yes, sir.
Discuss and take necessary action on the fiscal year 2017-2018 Enid Economic Development Authority financial plan.
Go ahead.
Aaron?
All right.
But we do have a person signed up to respond to that.
Okay, great. Up on the overhead, you'll see that the projected revenues and operations for both the current fiscal year that we're in and the proposed new budget that you have. Overall variance of $315,000 down in both revenue and expenditures with a balanced budget on this fund. Different types of revenue coming into this fund. We have TIF receipts that come into this fund. There are a couple of active TIFs that we have. We have one with Advanced Foods that's currently still outstanding, and we have one with Roosevelt Apartments, and we have the TP&L TIF that just passed and has not gone on the tax rolls yet, so that's not reflected, but it is currently active TIF that is outstanding. Miscellaneous revenue coming in from rent down at the Cafe Garcia property that we own downtown. Interest earnings, reimbursements are based on the HUD loan. This is money coming in from HUD where we pay out on the loan for the NOC Phillips campus. Transfers from general fund. Transfers from general fund are related to incentives that are in place and are related to sales tax. So those are items that have been already in place with agreements, and so general fund is required to send those sales tax overs to make those payments. And the balance comes from EMA to make this a balanced fund and fund the rest of the activities within the Economic Development Authority. When we get into the operations, there are a few things. There's a couple of accounts that we have that have trust fees. There's an increase related to the new note that we took out on the academy incentive during the last fiscal year. Professional services is a contract with Retail Attractions that's currently in place for recruitment of economic retail development within the city of Enid. Sales tax rebates, there are currently 3 that we're paying out. I think I have them on a slide coming up here, but those again are those rebates when we are paying them out for sales tax related to the revenues that we're sending over from sales tax from general fund. Economic development is the contract that we have with Enid Regional Development Alliance, and Brent Kissling is here tonight and we'll be giving an update about their office and what they're doing with that funding after I've gone over the fund as a whole. We have TIF payments, and those ones are directly related to the Roosevelt TIF. It's a coming in, and whatever we receive is what's paid out, and those are collected through ad valorem taxes. And then transfers out to other funds. Last year we had TIF funds related to the 66th Street that are not a repeat this year. These are the current sales tax rebates that we have on the books. We have an agreement with Jumbo's. It was a $250,000 incentive that started in November of 2012. There's an outstanding amount of $81,000. Enid Crossing Investors is a property that currently has PetSmart and TJ Maxx in that development. That was a 15-year, $950,000. You can see the outstanding amount. Enid Travel Plaza is a pilot out at 42nd Street, $100,000 incentive. We've paid out about half of that almost. And then we have the Enid Investment Partners, the Academy Sports. This was to reimburse some of the expenditures that they may have in setting that up to do with sales tax they paid on materials or permits and other things that were in a memorandum of understanding with them. And as soon as we have proof of receipts, we'll make payment out upon those. Debt payments are the other.
Was the Jumbos, was that 1 unit, 2 units?
It was just the South Save-A-Lot?
Yeah, it's a Save-A-Lot.
South, on South Van Buren?
Yes, correct. The other items being paid out of Enid Economic Development Authority are debt payments. Again, there's a HUD 108 loan that those revenues are coming in from CDBG and being paid out through the Development Authority, who's the holder of the note there. The taxable series Academy, you see, has gone up $218,000. That's due to February. It's the first time that we started paying principal on that. It was 1 year only of interest only. And then we have the advanced foods TIF. This one's very volatile. Whatever is collected by the county is what's paid out on that. And so there's an outstanding balance right now of a little over $2.1 million on those TIFs to pay off those bonds.
Those debts carry over to the new company that's buying Tyson Foods, that's buying Advanced Beer.
The agreement is actually owned by the Allen family. I think Greg Allen and his company is who we pay it out to. So it really doesn't matter who owns the company. Now, Mr. Mayor, I think we have 2 years left on that, maybe? Is that right? 2 or 3 years?
2 after the current year that we're in is what's anticipated, yes.
So to answer your question, when it changed hands to Advanced Pierre and now when it's changed hands to Tyson, it doesn't really affect our obligation to pay out the rest of this TIF.
The bondholders are separate from the company.
It's in the contract, in their contract.
Gerald, one item on there, the $72,000 a year we're paying to retail attractions. I would like to have a little more information about the projects that they've been directly involved in and what their specific involvement has been. I know we hear from Ricky from time to time, but it's been difficult for me to really figure out, what he's accomplishing for us. And we have been paying him $72,000 a year now for as many years as I've been on the commission. And I think we need to take a hard look at all of our consultant agreements. It seems like to me we have a lot of them, and if you total them up, they're a very significant amount of money.
Yes, I'll be glad to get with Ricky. We know, you just saw Ricky on Monday talking about the Lahoma Courts project. He does send out a monthly report that we send to you. I know
Yeah, but that's not a
somewhat
particularly helpful report.
generic, but I will get with him and ask him to help
I just like to have
compile
him give us some specifics. I know he's come and talked to us about a lot of different projects, but whether he was directly involved in getting those projects put together or not has always been kind of difficult for me to ascertain. And I know he can make a case. Ricky, he's a car salesman by nature, but if he would, give us, I just like to have some specifics.
Did you have something, Tammy?
Well, I just said Academy, Ulta, Maurice's, TJ Maxx, PetSmart. He said he's been involved in all of those.
Well, to some extent, but what's his involvement been? I don't know whether he was instrumental in getting that project built or not, whether it would have happened without him. I just like to get his description of what he's done. No doubt, but he comes and talks up a good case, but all of our consultants do. And as I've mentioned before, and I'd like to see this commission take a hard look at Kurt Rogo's contract. Rogo has been, again, he's been getting $48,000 a year every year I've been on the commission, and I don't know what he's doing for us either that we couldn't get accomplished through our elected representatives.
I'll work with Ricky to come up with a list of accomplishments over the past several years so that, and he'd be glad to come and report to the commission as well.
Well, the thing about it is, if we had somebody on the payroll and we didn't think they were doing anything, we wouldn't keep them. And we'd expect them to be able to justify their position.
Do we have we have a contract with Ricky, don't we?
We have a contract with Ricky that we renewed for 2 years, about 2 years ago, or
March
1
of
year ago.
18.
March of 18.
Is when it expires?
Yes.
Okay. So we could negotiate a new contract in beginning March of 18, but until then, we're kind of committed. Is that correct?
I think Ricky's worth something. I'm just not
Yeah.
sure he's worth $6,000 a month.
Well, I'll be glad to get with him. I know he's very excited and happy to work for the city of Enid, and he's certainly
I
done.
would be too if they were paying me $6,000.
We'll work on a report. As far as Kurt Rogo, we can do the same thing. In fact, he just actually did send a report recently that I forwarded out to you on legislation, events going on. I know I've reached out to him recently to help us on the ODOT issues to make sure that, hey, make sure we don't get cut. If somebody's going to get cut, go cut somebody else. Go cut Edmund's ODOT projects. So he has already, just coincidentally, had already talked to Mike Patterson about it a week before. I'd asked him about it and had mentioned that Mike Patterson thought that they would end up doing some bonding to cover the projects that are already committed to. So, but I will work with Kurt too, and it's about time for Kurt probably to come in and give a report on
I'm sure
his
he won't be
activities.
surprised that the
Ron
question.
brings up a good point, and I don't think we ought to just, we're not trying to pick on those two people. We're looking at all consultants. I think what you're asking is, why don't we look at all of them?
Yeah.
Not look at these two, but anybody that we're paying consulting fees that have been long-standing, maybe it's time to just take a look at them and make sure we're getting our money's worth.
The only other one is Mike Cooper, right?
Yeah, he's the only
Yeah,
one
Mike.
besides these two.
Mike never comes up on this discussion. Why is
Part
that?
of the VDA.
Well-
Oh,
VDA.
because Vance is the sacred cow and nobody else is.
No.
That's why Mike never comes up in these
No, no,
discussions. Every
actually-
year we do this, and it's stupid.
Actually, if I didn't think Cooper was doing something, but he does come here and tell us specific amounts of money that he's brought in. He tells us how many $1 million he got out of the state, how many $1 million he's got from the federal government. He's justified his, it's a lot of money, and I'm not sure either whether he's worth that much money. He does give us justification, which the other two do not
He
do.
will be here on March the 16th for his quarterly review.
They all do quarterly reports.
Well, but some of them are a lot more detailed and useful than others. Regardless, we have half a new commission, and everybody, I think, deserves a fair shot to see, and not
That's
for
fine.
nothing, but, having been on here for.
Don't couch it as in,
But-
I don't know that they're doing their job, because
But,
they're all doing.
hold on
their
a
job.
second.
I'll
Bear
catch
with
it
me,
that way. I
Tammy.
don't think they're doing their job.
But I was saying,
one at a
and being
time?
here for 4 years, that's one of those, I wouldn't mind looking at Ricky's. I don't feel like I get a lot of information, and maybe we can at least talk about a better way he can justify his existence or restructure the contract or something. But that we may be stuck with it till March of 18, just based on our current obligation.
You're talking about a $250 million economic asset sitting out there that somebody has to oversee it. And city council's not going to be able, city government's not going to be able to do that.
Which asset are you referring to?
Base.
I'm back
And
to
so
Vance
forth.
Air.
I'll talk to Ricky and Kurt and Mike, and be glad to have them come in very soon, if not the next meeting, to discuss the projects they've worked on, the financial impact they've benefited the city with, and I know they'll all be glad to do that.
Sounds good.
Aaron, back to you.
Anything further on Enid Economic Development Authority from me before I turn it over to Brent?
Yes. We have somebody signed up to talk on item 10. Diane, your name and address.
I know the routine by now for sure, as well as how to adjust microphone. Diane Levesque, 1324 West Oak Avenue, and a lot of what I'm about to say sounds like old hat to about half of you, but to you new folks, I want to cover the background that I did run for office. I lost, but I still have a significant number of supporters, as well as people who think that I should have been the one sitting up there for Ward 5. And I have to say, with regards to a certain Ward 5 person, this reference to Vance Air Force Base as a sacred cow was rather breathtaking. Because part of what I'm about to address with economic development is ADA compliance downtown. You might have access for disabled veterans, for example, to go up a sidewalk or to exit a sidewalk, but between those two ramps, you've got hell. So if you're looking into economic development and you're going to focus on downtown, you might want to make those sidewalks ADA compliant. Because I know our school kids are a high priority here too, but if you're looking to grow this city on the basis of the fact that it is a military base and we have disabled veterans who might just delightfully retire here, you're throwing up a lot of roadblocks if you don't address that. And my supporters, I know some of you have heard already that my biggest criticism about economic development is TIFs that wound up like StarTech did. I've already mentioned soap weeds as an indication of what the market is downtown. I've also mentioned Eskimo Joe's reluctance to stay here on a year-round basis. I might as well also mention Walls, although that's not downtown, but we used to have a Walls, and there's some kind of reason they're doing better elsewhere in this state than here in Enid, where they have been for years, making good money. So you want to look at that and stop spending your money on things and programs that down the road you can't have anything like increased retail revenue to show for it. That's basically my bottom line in my criticism of throwing money at Main Street Enid. There's nothing Main Street Enid is doing now that, say, the Commerce Chamber of Commerce could be doing. And then you have this, another nonprofit springs out of nowhere called Enid First. They seem to ignore the fact that Highway 81 should be, let's see, what was the term you used, a retail destination. You've been having your focus entirely on 412 to the expense of 81. And this is reflected in the money thrown at Enid First, who wasted it on signage having to do with a downtown that's not navigable on foot or by wheelchair, and all the way down 412, which you think is Enid, whereas north and south Enid is not. I want you to focus on Route 81 and point out that a recent newspaper article said that ODOT funding was cut, and they listed the Willow project. What was not cut was improvements on Route 81. You need to retool, refocus, and at the end of the day, at the end of any discussion about this budget, you should be able to hold up your retail receipts in tax receipts and say, see, what we've done has resulted in an improvement on this.
Thank you. I think we're ready for item 11.
Yeah, item 11.
Oh.
Are you still on item 10?
No, we're in item 11, Mayor.
Item 11, discuss and take necessary action on the fiscal year 2017-2018 Enid Economic Development Authority Financial Plan. Brent.
Mr. Mayor, City Manager, Commissioners, thank you so much for letting us address you this evening. Lisa is going to, hand out our accomplishments list for this past year, and I enjoy the opportunity to be able to tell our story every year. I will tell you that I will be extremely brief this evening and allow you to ask any questions that you have. It seems like you get to hear from me way too often already, but I know we have several new faces here on the commission and want to make sure you're familiar with the history of our organization. First of all, I've got a lot of colleagues around the state that work in economic development, and they tend to come to meetings like this and tell you that their organization created X number of jobs this year or created X number of dollars of capital expenditure, and we've never been in the business of doing that. We believe our mission is to create an environment where that growth can happen. We're not creating jobs, it's employers that create jobs. We're not making hundreds of millions of dollars in capital expenditures. That's shareholders that are doing that, or it's business owners that are doing that. We just want to make sure there's an environment to make that happen. And whenever you created this organization back in 2009, you tasked us with being aggressive in the area of economic development, and I hope that you feel like we've brought that to the table for you. On this, on this piece of paper, you can see the history on the front page. It says the results. It lists the funding from the Enid City Council since 2009. That's the year that Lisa and I began. And we started at $500,000 for the first 2 years and then bumped up to $600,000 since then. So you've invested $4.6 million in our organization over the last 8 years. What we have done with that is we've leveraged that, as you'll see in the next paragraph, with an additional $1.15 million. That's a 25% leverage that we brought to the table. And a big part of that is bringing more people to the table. When we started in '09, we had 23 members that paid $1,500 a year to be a part of ERDA. This past year, we've set yet another record at 60 members. That's a 161% increase. And a lot of that is because people just fear Lisa showing up and asking for money with a baseball bat. So that has been our growth strategy, and it's worked very well. On the second page, you will see at the top where that money has been spent. Some of it has been with retail incentives, about $920,000 of that. Industrial incentives have been $1.4 million. But as the dollars indicate, you can also see where a lot of our time is spent as well. We spend most of our time in technical assistance. Today, I met with 4 different businesses here in town. 2 of them are newer business, 3 of them are new businesses, and 1 is a business that's growing. None of those businesses are ones that we will eventually bring in front of you for incentives or anything like that. That's just us helping them, talking them through the process of how to work with Chris Kadansky and Chris Bauer and the fire department as they go through permitting processes here in the community. A lot of it has to do with trying to find a location for them. One of them in particular was working on New Markets Tax Credits, which is a federal incentive program, and we were connecting them to somebody that can handle that. So most of our time is spent in the area of technical assistance. Most of what you see is the incentive side. We highlighted a couple of projects that were the ones that we were very proud of here in this community, but probably the ones that were the highest profile also. The Hanover headquarters relocation, having that concluded this year, I think we'll look back and think that's one of a great thing for this community as they continue to grow. We will see the Coke plant expansion start to, well, it's already started to ramp down, but really by June or July, there will be very few construction workers out there at the plant. But we'll have the additional increase in employment that they had, plus the additional 200 trucks a day that'll be coming in and out of that facility. So a lot of ancillary businesses around them. Of course, Call Lake vote that we were involved with, the Academy Sports grand opening, where Commissioner, we do work very closely with Ricky Hayes and his retail efforts. I'm so thankful that you have him hired so that we don't have to deal with all the retail stuff day in and day out. It is he knows everybody and connects our community with those folks. So we're thankful to work with him. You see wind energy construction in the area, which has been great. The Vance Construction, Transportation Partners and Logistics, which will continue to grow out in this area. Some that maybe you haven't seen as much about. Stratus Solutions is a call center here in the area that we actually worked very closely on as they went through an expansion this year. The Love's Travel Stop opening, the entrance signs, and then Warren Cat up on Highway 81 is one that has not been talked about a whole lot here, but we've worked with them on a utility extension this year, which will not only allow them to grow and add approximately $150,000 a year in sales tax that they'll be paying, but it also opens up that entire area to development that we haven't had before, because we hadn't had utilities to the area. You can see a list of other ERDA activities. I'm not going to go through those, but those are just some of the things we get involved with throughout the year. But the back page is what I wanted to close with, our priorities for 2017. We are excited to be working with Dr. Patel on the downtown hotel, which is continuing to move along without any hiccups at this point, so we're very pleased about that. We believe on the second bullet that there are still ways for us to leverage our wind resources here in the area, and really I believe we're poised for the manufacturing side of that industry over the next couple of years. Continuing to work with Norse, had some meetings on that just today. Continuing the conclusion of Coke. Several housing projects are slated to be finalized during this year. And really, those are accumulation of what happened with our housing study a couple of years ago. The third to last bullet is to be proactive with Golden Shovel. This is our board wanting to not just have us answer the phone with a new opportunity that might be coming in. So what we have done is we have hired Golden Shovel for this year and given them the priority of looking at companies in aerospace, in value-added agriculture, and in energy that are in a growth mode in the United States. And they're providing us lists of those companies so we can call on them, basically cold call them. We've not tried that before. This is the first time for us to do it, but we are very excited about trying it and seeing how that works out. Workforce development will be a big one for us this year. We're leading the effort with Northwest Hires program. There will actually be teacher tours going on in teachers going and touring businesses all across Northwest Oklahoma. There'll be 5 of those tours going on this summer with somewhere between 30 to 50 teachers at each one of those. And then continue to aggressively market for retail. That is, that's our report from the Enid Regional Development Alliance. Like I said, I wanted to be brief this evening, but we would certainly welcome any questions that you might have.
What is Golden Shovel?
It's a firm that is their business, is working with economic development organizations like ours to do the research in industry clusters to find out what companies are growing. Now, they also work with economic development groups to do marketing efforts, and we're working with them a little bit on that to make sure that the language we use on a website or in a letter or an ad matches up with these selected industries that we're going after.
I'm sure you're aware that the budget request is at $550,000 for this year.
I am. And Gerald and I spoke about that. The only reason I put that in there, our board did vote for a $600,000 request, and I wanted to make sure.
I understand that. I did vote for that too. But sometimes you have to start contracting, but keep up the good work.
Thank you.
And certainly, as you folks come across, and have in the past, incentive options and opportunities that require additional funds, we're always available to partner the city and the ERDA. And as we have anything bigger than the ERDA's budget has allowed, what is your net available incentive number at this point?
We were just running the budget numbers a little earlier today, and I think for next year the total incentive available will be about $500,000. Mm-hmm. Whenever we first started this back in '09, we were very aggressive with a lot of different businesses, and the last 2 years, in fact this year, I think we improved 2 incentives for the whole year. We're trying to rebuild that amount back up to where it used to be. One program that we like to use is called our Grow Enid Loan Program, which is where we partner with local banks. And if a business is needing $100,000 to start or grow their business, and the bank's willing to loan them $75,000 of that, we come in a subordinate position and loan them maybe another $15,000 or $20,000, and then they have to pick up their equity. Even though that's a multi-year payout, we have to allot for all of that money up front, and so we got down to where we were having about $50,000 or $75,000 left in the incentive fund, but we've been able to build that back the last couple of years.
Good.
Thanks.
Good.
Yes, sir.
I guess, we talked about Ricky's contract before and what that brings, and trying to bring different companies and restaurants and whatever to the area. Now we're talking about Gold Shovel, also to find out which areas we should find to attract. Looks to me like we got at least 3 different areas that are trying to bring economic development. And I guess the question some of the new commissioners might have is, okay, there's 75,000 there, there's 500,000 over here, and how much is, we're trying to get our arms around the whole economic development puzzle and try and figure out whose is which, and are we getting our money's worth for each one of those pieces?
Excellent question. And really, on the Golden Shovel contract, I think it's like $5,000 or $10,000, something like that we're paying. And we've filled that function in the past, just reading the magazines and trying to find out. But there are also things that happen behind the scenes with industry that maybe we miss. And we don't know whether this will work. This may be the only year that we use Golden Shovel, but we wanted to make sure we're doing everything we can to be proactive, to diversify our economy and to grow these wealth sectors, because value-added agriculture and energy and aerospace, those are three pretty big areas for us. And if we could bring in one company, even a small one, that thing's paid for itself many times over.
Well, the
George,
$5,000 figure probably doesn't.
These are the ones that the city of Enid is involved with. We've got a lot of different entities in the city of Enid that are recruiting businesses to our workplace, not just the three that we're talking about.
Right.
Well, and I might speak to, you really have a team Enid right now that's being very aggressive. You have Ricky that works very closely with all the retail developers. He's really the fisherman, and we get to clean them. But we got to have that bait out there in the water. We work very closely with Kurt Rogo. I know his name was mentioned a while ago as well. We had an instance, we've had several instances in this legislative session where not necessarily a bill was about to pass, but maybe some of the rhetoric that was leading up to the bill was happening. And we had one company that we were working with that refused to take our phone call anymore after some things that were said and the bill was filed. And Kurt was able to go down there and work out a compromise on it, and we've been working with that company again. So that was one very good example of the way the team kind of works together behind the scenes, and it's not always stuff that Jessica's writing about in the newspaper. But it's got to happen in order for us to move forward.
Items like that may just be the tip of the iceberg, too.
Yeah, I'd like to just say I think Enid Regional Development Alliance is a great partner with the city. I think what you see, the interaction is on big projects like Commissioner Zell was talking about, like the downtown hotel, which they were instrumental in helping us get that developer, and they worked with us, third time's a charm, right, Brent?
Yes.
And but what you don't see, except for maybe the three commissioners that serve on that board, is they do a lot of just what's written on here, but a lot of projects when they're working with other little companies that you may never know about, other than when you hear reports this or stuff that never makes it to the newspaper. And when ERDA was formed, one of the reasons why the city wanted to fund them and have them was to step up the efforts over what was done with the chamber before and prevent all these people from coming to the city and dealing with the city. And I think they've done a very good job in doing that. So what you see usually with interaction with them is big projects that are beyond the scope of the funding that they have.
And then some of what we see at I'm one of the commissioners on the board, some of what we see is ERDA acts as kind of a central point for a lot of these moving pieces. So Autry Tech and ERDA will partner to encourage a business that's coming in to provide some additional training or help encourage folks to stay here and expand production. Also works with the Garfield County Industrial Authority and the Industrial Park and marketing that space. And ERDA serves does just a lot of man hours of just grunt work that would otherwise, two things would happen. It would fall through the cracks absent that. Or almost even worse, you'd have like 8 people trying to accomplish the same thing, little bites at a time. But it certainly, ERDA has covered a lot of ground that from the city level, we just don't have the capacity to, and avoid a lot of that, I think, double dipping by partnering with all these other organizations, most of which who have a seat at the table in the board meetings and with the other ERDA events.
That's one of the things that I appreciated after we sat down and we talked, because I started to research it, and I actually did read through your bylaws and look through everything.
Read the whole thing. Oh my, I'm so sorry.
I like to read, I keep telling you. No, but comparatively speaking to what you all provide that a lot of other municipalities don't provide is that you do speak and deal with existing businesses and companies that are here and help them to grow, which in and of itself is a function that helps Enid. And without that, that's the only function that I know of, or only entity in this town that does that. So without that, you got a lot of businesses that would fail, not know about grants and loans and things that are available for expansion. It's a very good resource that I think Enid benefits from extensively.
Well, one thing too is that I don't think a month goes by that we don't see Brent or Lisa or both of them at one of our meetings. So we have a great deal of contact with you folks too.
I am so sorry about that.
Well,
One question I'd like to ask is,
Yes, sir.
the business incubator, I don't know whether you have any involvement with that or not. I know you're housed out there in their vicinity. Is that still a thriving concern?
Yes, that is a phenomenal facility in our community, and it's owned and operated by Career Tech. And if you're not familiar, it's the building in which our office resides, but it's got a whole bunch of bays and offices where new businesses can move in. And it's a 3-year program. You start with a very low rent the first year, second year is about half a market rate, and then third year is about market rate, and then you graduate. And normally that's when we start working with the company. Once they've made it to that third year, we're working with them on a location or trying to fill a capital gap in order to get their equity right, in order to buy a building, or sometimes on the workforce development side and helping them to find people. But it's fun to be out there. It's typically near full while it's out there. And right now you've got folks making dog biscuits and pickles and furniture. And so on any given day, you get all of those smells in your office at one time. And it's very invigorating and nauseating.
Enjoy it. We do have another one, and we're going to look at this next week too also.
Yep, that's right.
Maybe 2 weeks from now.
And today was the Enid Entrepreneurship Leadership Series Business Plan Competition Luncheon, and there was a great local company that won today. They've made an app. I can't remember the name of it. Base Connect. It's kind of like a Facebook for folks in the military. And I mean, it's very much supported by the military, all branches of the military, and started right here in Enid and is going to be worldwide. I'm sure Jessica covered that today. It's going to be a neat story in the paper tomorrow.
Having Entretech help them has not hurt one either.
Well, just helping them put the business plan together.
Exactly.
Again, it's a partnership.
Yep, it works.
Well, I appreciate both your comments and my fellow commissioners' comments. 3 of us are pretty new here, so we're trying to figure out how everything fits together. So I think it's worth a little time that we can go through and figure out what's going on. So appreciate that.
Call anytime.
Any other questions or comments?
I do have one.
Yes, sir.
As far as the youth, are there any conversations regarding the youth, like bringing in any businesses that would be attractive to them?
For youth?
Or give them something to do?
Yes. You're talking about it like on the retail attraction side?
Or even, so many times you hear the youth say we don't have anything to do, or the reason why we get in trouble because we don't have much to do.
Yep.
But to give you an example of what I'm talking about, when you go down I-35 going to Stillwater, there used to be a big motor derby like field where they would have jumps and all that. They closed it down.
At Highway 51.
I mean, I went up to Colorado to visit my sister and my brother, and they had a big skating, skateboard complex. I mean, humongous, with a BMX bike crossing, motocross type of facility. I mean, just something that would give them something to do exciting, which, seeing that, I noticed when I was up there, there were businesses all around it. I mean, there were food stores, there were all different type of businesses going on. And I know that something like that here in Enid, if possible, would attract a lot of business. Because it's just like going to church. How do you get the adults to come to church? Send the children. I mean, that's a true fact. So is there any conversation in the future geared towards
all the time?
youth and
In fact,
bringing
I'm
businesses
sorry to
in?
interrupt, but one of the 4 meetings I had today was with a development firm that's looking at Enid for entertainment venues. I'll use that term. Looking to bring in entertainment, not strip clubs or something like. I'm talking about like children entertainment venues, and of course, and it was a deal that was brought to us from Ricky. But just looking at investment here, it's probably a group that we'll get to meet with whenever we're at ICSC. But we are a town of 50,000 and 130,000 people shop here. We could increase that trade area by quite a bit if we had more places for folks to go out on a date. high school kids to go out on a date here more than just going to a movie or going to miniature golf. I think there's a lot of dollars that are available to come in if we could do it. I think you're right on target there.
Anything else? Thank you, Brent.
Thanks, sir.
Aaron, are you ready for item 12?
So unless there's any changes you would like to the Economic Development Authority that I could catch tonight and bring back on the summary for you. Okay?
Okay. We will now adjourn to convene as the Enid Public Transportation Authority. Item 13, all trustees of the Enid Public Transportation Authority are in attendance at the special meeting. Item 14, the Enid Public Transportation Authority special meeting is now in session. Item 15, discuss and take necessary action on the fiscal year 2017-2018 Enid Public Transportation Authority financial plan. Aaron?
Again, this is a placeholder in case there are any changes to the Transportation Authority budget that you would like for us to bring back for you.
What page are they on in our budget book?
184.
184.
Thank you.
Any questions, comments? They did have a good year this year.
They've done
Or
very
having.
well this year, yes.
Going once? Good job, Aaron.
Oh, one question, if I may, Mayor. Sorry to come in so late. What were the donations that they received or were expecting to receive?
Yeah, and I know that that was one that Mary was asked about yesterday, but I think she is working to partner with some local businesses on getting some funding for bus match to provide some services. I think maybe to some medical facilities, I think is what my notes had said when I went back and reviewed that. So if that comes through or not, we're not sure at this time, but she is working towards getting some agreements there on that.
Good luck to her.
Yes. You ready to go to item 16? We will now adjourn to reconvene as the Enid City Commission. Item 17, discuss and take necessary action on fiscal year 2017-2018 City of Enid budget.
And again, this is to capture anything else that we've discussed so far, whether it be general fund or health fund or any of the other funds that we've gone over that you would like changes on. The remaining funds that we have left that we have not talked about yet, we'll come back on Tuesday and finish up with, and those are the airport, the 4 golf funds, fire, and the event center, Central National Bank Center fund. So other than that, we've covered all the rest of the funds, and if there's anything you would like for us to capture and bring back as a summary, I would be glad to do that.
Awesome.
You've done a good job, Aaron. Thank you.
I'll move to adjourn.
A motion by Ben to adjourn.
Second.
Second by Tammy. Please cast your vote. Motion carries 7-0. We are adjourned.
Thank you for joining us for the Enid City Commission meeting. If you have any questions or comments, visit our website at enid.org.